Welcome. You are listening to KMMU, Main Street Media in Utah. I am your host today, Dalane, England. This is the Liberty Mom Show. Liberty Moms are the original Secretaries of Defense. We are the real defenders of the home front, and we are there when it comes to defending our families and our communities. I'm so happy to have you join us today. I have a great lineup for us. I'm very excited about having one of my really great friends and co-host of the Liberty Mom Show for many years, Kris Kimball. She is a delegate to the National Republican Convention, so she went back and attended. And so we're going to hear from her some insights and from listen to what she has to say from having been there in person. And then also we're going to be talking about Olympics coming to Utah. I have a friend, Jen, who is going to be joining us, who, if you've done a little bit of research, really, it doesn't even take that much, but she has done a lot of research. But if you're willing to do a little bit of research, it's amazing what you might be interested in knowing about the details of bringing the Olympics to the state of Utah. Whether you're super excited about it, which they claim 80% of the people are, or you're not excited about it, I think this will be really important information to know. So we hope that you'll stay with us and listen to that. So before we get started, while we're waiting for my first guest, Kris Kimball, to join us, we are going to, I just wanted to invite you to a couple of things. One is, as you may or may not know, I just assume that everyone knows because I do, but you may not know that the legislature in the state of Utah created American Founders and Constitution Month, and that's in September because September is when the founders signed the Constitution, created the Constitution, and that's when they signed it, September 17th, 1787. And so the legislature passed a resolution and deemed the month of September American Founders and Constitution Month. So we're going to have a kickoff at the Utah State Capitol, and that's going to be Thursday, August 29th. And that is going to start at 9 o'clock in the morning and run till about 12 noon. Anyone is welcome. Citizens welcome. Schools are welcome. You can take your class, your entire school. It's going to be a pretty fun event. I think last year was the first year. This is our second annual. And I think you're going to find it really, really amazing and quite interesting. There'll be a lot of historical artifacts there that will be really fun to see and actually get to view those and maybe even touch some of those artifacts that are very historical and old, back to the revolutionary times. So that will be really interesting. There's a lot of diagrams, and we're actually having quite a few founding fathers and founding mothers reenactors that will be there portraying them. And so you get to actually meet history face to face and get to talk to some of the people, and that will be really fun. And then the next event that I wanted to make you aware of, and we'll probably talk about this a little later, is Freedom's Light Festival. And I want you to put that on your calendar. That will be September 19th, 20th, and 21st. So that's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, September 19th, 20th, and 21st. And that will be at Bountiful Park. The website for that is freedomslight.us. And so you can go on there and learn, get the schedule, get all the information. But again, that is a place where you get to go and learn from the founding fathers and founding mothers face to face. You get to learn about the Constitution through engagement and interaction and experiences. So very fun, but also a great opportunity. So I hope you will join us. Right now, we would like to welcome our great guest, Kris Kimball. Welcome, Kris. We're so happy to have you.
Hi, Dalane.
Hi, welcome home.
It's fun to be with you. Yeah, thank you.
It's so great to see you. I haven't even had a chance to touch base with you or contact you since you got home, and I'm glad that you made it home. I guess that was touch and go. A lot of people had a hard time getting back.
Well, believe it or not, the last part of our delegation arrived home yesterday.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Yesterday?
Yes, due to flight, and then some people had to resort to driving home, and we were in Milwaukee. And so that takes time to travel back home.
Yes,
but
it was.
yeah, missed flights. And honestly, those of us that were on that 740 flight Delta it was a direct flight out of Milwaukee. Our flight got through fine. But the flights before it and after were canceled. And then there were other airlines involved as well, as everybody knows.
Right. Yes.
But so we just had a delay of about an hour leaving, and
Which is
so that's
almost
nothing.
$100.
Yeah, that's nothing compared to
Right.
what other people have gone through. So
Oh,
yeah, so
nice.
we felt very, very blessed and fortunate to get home.
Yes. Well, I'm so glad you made it back. And yeah, that's great. So we're really excited to hear from you that we're actually there, got to be there, and we want to hear the inside scoop. So you were a delegate to the NRC, and I've already introduced you and told everybody about you. So I want to hear, what is your take on the convention this year?
Well, a lot of our delegates, which was interesting, were first-time delegates, and so they had nothing to compare it to. And
Uh-huh. Right.
my first time as being a delegate was back in 2016, and it was very different. Day one, we were doing our roll call and announcing our delegate votes for President Trump on day one. And in Cleveland, that did not happen on
No,
day one. It happened, I think, the evening of day two is when that probably happened. And it was because there was some fraction at the convention because Donald Trump did not win every state.
back in 2016.
Yeah. So Ted Cruz had won 7
Yes.
or 8 states.
Right.
And at that moment, going into convention, the delegates, as far as we understood, were pledged and there to support Ted Cruz, Utah being one of those states.
Right.
And so the first morning, they were whipping, so to speak, is the term that they use. They were working and whipping the states. And the first obstacle was the rules. And
Yes.
they wanted a voice vote. But what's interesting at the arena, you have the delegates are on the floor, and they're the ones that are there. They're assigned to vote because they're voted on by the delegates at home at their state conventions. They get voted to be a delegate, and they're the only
Their
ones.
representatives are representing their party from the
Exactly.
state to the national.
And they're the only ones that are allowed to vote.
Right.
Okay. But you're in an open arena and you have people, thousands of people
Yes.
that sit above you and in the upper parts of the arena. How can you really discern voices that are coming from just above the arena, above the floor to the floor? Okay.
Right.
It's hard to really discern that. And so there was some problems with the rules, and this happens over time. And you can see what's happened in the Democrat Party, how the delegates are just totally ignored, and even the primary process, because they've now put forward a candidate who was never elected by anybody.
Right. Yeah.
Claiming she's grassroots. The people have been involved every step of the way, and that is nothing could be more contrary. No one has been involved. Not one Democrat Party member at the grassroots level has been involved in that process or had a voice in her name being submitted. It's just the party establishment is making that decision. Well, the Republican Party is kind of, I hate to say it, but they're kind of moving in the same way. So back in 2016, and it originally started in 2012 when Mitt was the nominee, because the nominees are the ones that really influence the platform, the rules. And
Yeah.
they were back in 2012, Mitt Romney was trying to shut down the Ron Paul delegates. So they were creating rules to malalign those delegates so they didn't have any power. Well, that kind of was happening again in 2016 because Trump wanted, of course, whoever the nominee is would want this. They want a unified party. And before it was settled, okay, they ended up flipping enough states, Iowa being one of them, and they threatened the states. Iowa is the first caucus state, okay, and Ted Cruz won Iowa in 2016. Well, the RNC went to Iowa and said, look, if you don't change and submit your, go and affirm these rules by voice vote, then you're going to lose the position of being the first caucus. Okay,
Right.
you'll lose that status. And
Right.
they didn't want that to happen. So they start caving in on these little threats that they make. Okay. So be that as it may, the rules were passed by a voice vote.
Yes.
Okay. And nobody really has a chance. I mean, the rules is a booklet. It's pages and pages
Yes.
of rules, and nobody really even has a chance to look at it. It's more ceremonial.
Right. Mhm.
Okay.
It's going through the
So
motions.
that I would say was the biggest contrast, is because you had still two candidates that were kind of vying for that position, where this time, and then of course, with the attempted assassination the Saturday before convention, they had a pre-convention party and kickoff on Sunday, the very following day. But obviously, the powers that be that wanted Trump eliminated wanted mass confusion at our convention. That was
Yes.
the plan. And according to our RNC bylaws, Nikki Haley would have been the nominee
Right.
because she was next in line with the next largest amount of delegate votes at that point.
Absolutely.
So, by the act of God, by God's grace, which we are so grateful for, that it's so nice to see the hand of God involved in sparing. And unfortunately, the lives of those that were of that fireman Corey. Unfortunately, he gave his life, saving his family, and protecting his family at that incident. But the amount of chaos that would have erupted from that, if that assassination had been accomplished, it would have been horrific. And as delegates, we would have had to deal with it at convention and move forward, bringing forward another nominee. It would have been awful. But but in but what ended up happening was an amazing event of unity, of an outpouring of love and admiration because of what Trump did, his actions that he took, the strength that he showed, the courage that he showed, his dedication, his loyalty to the people of the United States. And it was very, very different in that respect. And just a real, uh, again, being able to hear these stories of Americans who have been affected by the bad policies that we've been living under for the last 4 years.
Those are some of my favorite speeches. We're just
They
the
are.
real live ordinary people who just tell their stories. It was very, I don't know, it was really enlightening and just very touching. It just makes it
It
so
is.
real.
And I would highly recommend people, I believe you can go to the RNC website, C-SPAN. There's places where you can go and watch everything. You probably could just do it on YouTube now,
You
but
can just
but
Google it. I found, and I couldn't watch it live. I just Googled it and they came up very quickly and very easily. It's
yeah,
really easy to find.
because the media does leave out because they have to do commercial breaks,
Right.
and there's only so much airtime that they have. And so where we're watching everything that's being said, the America is not. And so you just have to realize that if you want to go back and see all of the speeches and what was said, the content, it's very good. In fact, I'm sitting there going, how would anybody want to vote for be part of any other party when you hear these heartwarming stories? And um, I love too that we were able to see President Trump. And again, this was very different. This was very different from 2016. And 2020, of course, I was a national delegate, but they canceled the in-person
Right.
convention.
Right.
So we had to do all of our business online. So and just watch from home like everyone else. And so we had to cast our votes and do everything that we did through uh, documentation over the internet. But he didn't show up. He didn't really attend or come until the last day in 2016. And so this time he was there every evening.
Yes, he
He
was there
came
every
in.
day.
And Utah, we don't always get the best seats because we're a small delegation compared to other states, and we're a assumed red state, like it's going
Yes,
to vote for him. All the
right.
swing states, all of the states that they're trying to win are up front, up to the stage.
Of
Okay,
course.
they get all the great seating. We're
Mhm.
towards the back, but luckily, where Utah sat, we were right by the entrance that Trump would come in every evening. And so we
Oh,
got to see him,
uh-huh.
pretty close up as he walked into the arena and went up to the stairs to his assigned seats, his booth seating. And so that was fun to be able to witness that every night and see him come in every night, and the applause and the recognition when he came in, and so and then one night his grandkids were there, and he had his little
Yes.
grandkids sitting on his lap, and it just was this human, like, this family almost lost their dad and their grandfather.
Mhm.
This is a person that people, that family members, friends, um, he's a human, and they've dehumanized him so much on the radical left, which has escalated to this kind of violence, unfortunately. And we have to be very careful in our language that we are talking about policies and not people.
Kris, that is the best advice, I think, is that we just need to stick with the policies, but
Mhm.
not just those of us who are involved and active, but could we not give advice to this voters? Don't make decisions based on manipulation, based on how you perceive someone, but look at their actual record. Look at the fruits of their labors. Look at policy, what they've done, not at how you feel, not just how the media makes someone look. But I just really feel, I know you do too. We really have tried very hard for decades to educate people on getting involved in learning the policy, not the emotional side, but the policy. And that's where we all need to be focused. Great.
Exactly. Exactly. Demonizing, name calling. There's no
Mhm.
place for that. It's just not. It's just not necessary at all. It is. It is if you have no framework for you to vote, for you to run on. Like if you can't look at your own success, and I think that's where we see that with the Democrats is they don't have success. I was listening to Glenn Beck this morning, and he was saying that 39% of Americans are concerned about how they will pay their bills.
Yes.
39%. Okay,
Are
so
worried right now how to pay their bills, not worried that someday. They're worried right now how
oh
they're
yeah,
going to pay
this
their
is
bills.
living paycheck to paycheck. This
40%.
There, I exactly, and yet you have the president, um, who should not be president right now. He has shown, um, if if he's not capable of being served charges for felony charges that he's committed, and he's not able to go to court, if he's not able to run for office, he's not able to serve. I
Exactly.
mean, that is talk about the most high stressful, competent based
Yes.
job that you could have in the political world. And we have somebody that um, can't tell whether he's shaking your hand yet or not, or, can't carry on a trend of thought or finish a sentence, or, you know, we're just a joke. We are a joke to the world.
It's really
And,
unbelievable. But of course, the other countries, their leaders have been meeting with Biden for the last 3 years. They know perfectly well that Biden has been missing a few pieces of his deck. So this isn't news to the world. It's some Americans are starting to wake up to it, but they've been meeting with him, and he's been who he is. So it is a national security risk. Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. And as we're talking about the convention, I do want to give a shout out to our Utah GOP. Uh, Rob Axum and Brentley and, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember all their staff, everyone that was involved. I don't want to leave out any names, but um, I don't know if we want to tell the story of what happened back in 2016 or not, but honestly,
Still
they did
true.
such a great job. I was so impressed, and I organize events as well. I organize and move and transport people around because that's what I do with
That's
my
what you do for a living.
a job or career or
A
as a
travel
as a
agency.
business owner of a travel tour company. And so I see and watch how things are
Yes.
played out and the organization. And honestly, our Utah GOP did a fantastic job.
That is really
We
awesome.
really
That's good to
did.
know. This is
Yeah.
the
And
kind of thing
so
we don't know unless we're not getting this on TV. We don't know unless you tell us.
no,
That kudos
and
to them. That's really awesome.
And again, there's logistics involved because
Yeah.
what had happened is, the convention's in Milwaukee, but there's so many people coming in and media and, everybody that's anybody that's connected to anything political just comes in and hotel rooms get booked up.
Yes, they do.
Okay. And so the RNC had us clear over in Madison. Okay, and it was gonna be, like, at least an hour, maybe longer, hour plus bus ride.
Seriously?
Yeah, and, we had that happen to
We
back
did.
back in 2016 when
2016.
Eva Green got mad,
Right.
and so we were downtown in Cleveland, and she got mad at the delegation because, we were we were pledged to Ted Cruz, and so we were committed to vote for the people that Ted Cruz put forward for his committees. That's how it works.
That's right.
And she wanted to circumvent that and be the rules chair. And the delegates didn't vote for her because that's not what Ted Cruz wanted. Okay.
Right.
So she got mad at us and she changed our hotel so that we were clear out. We were in Akron, Ohio. It was like an hour.
It was way far away. Even
Oh,
in a Lyft or a Uber, it was a long drive.
and our hotel didn't even have a bus pickup.
No.
We had to walk on a highway. No, it was
Yeah.
so unsafe. It was a 2-lane highway, no sidewalk. We were walking on the side of the road like about a mile to get up to the other hotel where the pickup was. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what we did in 2016.
Thank
And
you, Amy.
this time, honestly, they did their homework and logistics, and Rob and they organized to have 3 buses based on, I mean, there was about 140 people in our delegation. So they had 3 buses, and there was, if you wanted to, if they took us out to an event during the day, because during the day you kind of have free time.
Right.
Then you want to go back to the hotel before going into the convention, we've got a bus for you. If you want to go from that event directly to convention, we've got a bus for you. And honestly, it met almost everybody's needs. The transportation was very fluid because and those buses are not cheap. And I know that because
Yes.
of what we do.
Exactly.
They're tens of thousands of dollars. And they did a really good job in getting donors and people to step up to the plate so that our costs wouldn't be as expensive because you still pay
Yeah.
to attend the convention.
It's expensive to go. It's all at your own expense. You have to pay for your
Yeah.
airfare, your accommodations. You got to pay for everything.
And the convention itself, you
The
pay.
convention. Yeah.
Yeah, because that arena is being rented and everything is tied into it. So anyway, I have to give a shout out to the Utah GOP, and they worked really hard. I loved seeing that they were so active in fundraising to help the battleground states that we're in. And so that's what Rob was looking at is we're Utah. We know we're going to go for Trump. We know Trump is going to win, but we've got neighbors to the south and to the west of us that we need those Senate candidates elected, and we need Trump to win in those states.
We
and
do.
so there was a lot of effort made to connect with other delegations across the United States to make sure that fundraising was coming in, knowing that we could send a team of volunteers to either state to help flip and make sure that Kerry Lake gets elected in Arizona and Sam Brown gets elected in Nevada. And so, again, that's going to take bus travel. That's
Yeah.
expensive. And so they're trying to do as much fundraising so that they can help in those battleground states. And so it was really great to see that level of organization to help Trump win nationally, as well as these conservative Senate candidates that we have next door to us.
That is so wonderful, Kris. I'm so thrilled to hear that. There are so many things that happen that are so discouraging. So that is that is wonderful. So I think we can reach out and thank our officers for their
Yeah.
excellent work.
And any of you that are looking to find a way to help, because I know 4 years ago when Trump was running, I am sitting going, hey, are we calling? Are we? Because when Mitt Romney ran back in
Yes,
12, there were call banks. There were places you could go to make
a
phone calls.
lot of, yes.
They were doing transportation to battleground states. And honestly, 2020, it was like ghost town. Like, I'm
Right.
trying to even just get a Trump sign. And it wasn't until the week before the final November election day that there was some signs that showed up that the party had ordered. And so I just know this time around, the leadership is much more on top of it and getting organized to send volunteers. So my point in all of this is saying, if you have the ability to leave and you have the ability to go out and knock doors and canvass in these battleground states next door to us, then contact the Utah GOP, get in touch, get your email connected to them so that they can let you know when they are calling on volunteers to go out in the next, probably in September. They'll start doing that, September and October. And so if you're able to do that, have the time and the ability, this is a chance for you to really help make a difference in our nation, taking back the White House as well as the Senate and House seats as needed.
This is it. And Kris, it's none of us have time. We have to create time. We're going to have to give up something else that is valuable that we really like. But you think about the founding fathers. Was it convenient for them to go out and with their guns and say, you know what? You're not going to destroy our freedom. We're not going to allow it. We're not going to let you rule over and control us. And so they made such sacrifices. They literally, many of them gave their lives. They definitely gave their fortunes. They risked everything so that we can have freedom. And I think the least we can do is spend 3 or 4 days and go help other states. Because, it is nice to be from a state we know Trump is going to win here. He's going to get our electoral votes. But we live so close to 2 states that we can make a huge difference. And, Kris, it's really quite fun. You go with other like-minded people. We've done it before. It's a very fun thing to do. And it's a great experience. And you get to talk to people. It really is very fun. And it makes a huge difference. It makes such a huge difference. We have the power to help flip those states and make sure that they're secure.
Dalane, I don't know if you remember the organization. There was an organization that was on the ground, America Act or something.
It'll come to me. Just give me a second.
Because I traveled with them. Well, we went to Las Vegas after the election.
Yes.
Okay. We went to Las Vegas to canvass and find the voter fraud attached to mail-in balloting. And that's why it's a joke. I mean, honestly, when you have Deidre Henderson and anybody in the legislature or Spencer Cox, when you have them telling you that we have a safe and effective way, that is a joke. They're either lame, stupid, or diabolical. That's the excuse that I give them, because it's one of the three. To think that vote by mail is a great way to vote, because we were down in Nevada and we found enough voting fraud in Clark County. This is just mail-in ballots, nothing else. We found enough fraud that they actually had to hold another election for the county commission race in Clark County.
Yeah, we sure did. Yep.
Okay. So one race was totally, there's never enough. No, there's not enough. No, there's just one or few that go. No, there was plenty of fraud. And you were with me. I mean, we heard all the stories of what happened.
And it's documented. It's documented.
Yeah,
Affidavits,
it's all
hundreds of
affidavits.
affidavits.
Yeah.
People willing to go into court and say, yes, this is exactly what happened.
So they took all of that information, and it was enough to overturn the results of a county commission race, and they had to hold another election. So we know that. And then, but during that 2020 cycle, because the state parties were being so lame about supporting Trump, okay, is all I can think of. You've got maybe party leadership that really didn't like Trump. I don't know. I can't speak to that. But we went to Detroit. We went to Michigan, a battleground state, and knocked doors for 3 or 4 days, right up to Election Day. It was the first part of November. And I remember this because it was so frigid, cold. Oh my gosh. And we were dying. It was so cold. But there was a group of us that went out and just to knock doors. And it wasn't organized by any of our state GOP. It was the other organization that was stepping up to help Trump win. And that's why I was knocking doors and I'm talking to folks. And that's a huge union area in Michigan, of course. And I was surprised at the support we would find. They weren't visibly showing support because a lot of them were union workers, and they told us, hey, we're going to vote for Trump, but we can't put a sign out. We can't show that we're going to do that, but they were going to vote. And that's why it was kind of interesting how he lost Michigan. And I found that really interesting because when I'm on the ground and our teams are on the ground knocking doors, there's nothing more grassroots than that.
There's nothing.
The outcome that should have been way different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were not seeing that on the ground. We were seeing huge support for Trump. But be that as it may, so I'm excited that we do have leadership now in the Republican Party that wants to help on the national level. We didn't see that in 2020.
Yeah, so that will be a big change. And that is a great invitation, Kris. It's this excellent invitation. That's something that really a lot of people can do. And I would just encourage everyone to just set some time aside and plan on going to Nevada or Arizona. And, you know, it is fun and it makes a huge difference. So thank you very much for sharing that. Now, I know you've been before. And so I wanted to ask you, did you notice like the energy shift? There was a difference in the energy. And I want to, you know, first of all, address the energy that I also want to ask you about.
Well, yeah, we can talk about the energy shift a little bit because what was interesting is the level of demonstration, counter demonstration, was drastically reduced.
Interesting.
Drastically reduced. Drastically, yes.
It was 2016. It was huge.
It was very big. And Black Lives Matter, that's when they were very first getting organized. Now, of course, we learned a lot about them in 2020, but they were starting to get organized in 2016. And I had to go into Cleveland early because I was on the committee for credentialing for Ted Cruz. And being a committee member, I had to go in a few days early to attend some meetings prior to convention starting. And I knew that Black Lives Matter had put out, and they were scheduling protests. I just knew I was fine during the day. I didn't feel uncomfortable in Cleveland during the day, but I knew I needed to get back to my hotel before dark.
Yeah.
You know, because there was such a high level of demonstration and protesting that was going on. And back in 2016, they were burning flags. Like people were coming right up to the fencing area, burning flags. There was a huge plaza where you could demonstrate. And that's where we first connected with Charlie Kirk and Turning Point.
Yes, that is. That's the first time I ever heard of them.
Yeah. Yeah. They
We
were
were
just
so impressed with those young people. They were just so amazing.
they were kind of just in their third year, I think, of being organized. And here they were protesting socialism, but Black Lives Matter was there, and counter protests, and oh my gosh, everything. People dressed up in costume, dressed up like Trump, dressed up women that hate Trump, everything you could think of. That was not there.
Really?
And
that is so interesting.
There were a couple of characters. In fact, Tracy Halverson was with me, and Tina, and we were crossing an intersection to get into the fenced area, to the secured area. And there was a large black guy, and he had on a very distasteful Donald Trump t-shirt. And I just learned, we were laughing because people would try to warn us, hey, there's some really there's people up there protesting, yelling, go, hey, we're from Utah. We're used to it. Temple Square, come on. We're yelled at all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
You just ignore it, right? I mean,
right.
You
don't give it any energy.
Anyway, so it turns out the moment that we're crossing this intersection and crossing paths with this man that's telling us that we're entering hell because we're going to the RNC convention.
Yeah.
Hell, welcome to hell, you know. Yeah. Anyway, I think Tina tried to engage with him, and he turned around and told us that he said, I hope your daughters get raped.
Whoa.
And but the thing is, but I mean, you just walk by, you just ignore that. I mean, come on.
You do.
Just some random stranger.
It's not about any of you. It's about him. No. Really. Something like that tells all about who he is.
Exactly. Okay. And but what we didn't realize is that somebody was videotaping us, because everyone has a camera.
It's absolutely
all got their, X accounts and everything. So that actually ended up going viral. Alex Jones retweeted it, and
really,
I don't know, like 5-6 million people at one time. And it was just funny because we're just walking across the street. We just end up in this little tweet that just. But that's the thing. Everyone has cameras, and everyone's trying to record their piece of the RNC. But I will tell you, the last night was when I saw the most of the protesting, and it was really just in one little small intersection. And you had the Jesus people who are fine. They're there promoting and they're just trying to minister. I slipped out and said minister, but they're just trying to preach, and they're hoping that they can connect with a non-believer, someone that doesn't believe in Christ. And so they're doing their thing. And then there was a woman, another black lady, and we had seen her earlier, and she had this really large sign that said really horrible things about Trump. Well, it turns out later, one of the influencers on X, Laura Loomer, interviewed her and got her to admit that she had been hired by Soros.
Really?
Yeah. And so it was interesting, though, that the level of demonstration was nil compared to what we saw in Cleveland.
That is very interesting. I would not have guessed that. Oh, that is very interesting.
It's not to say that things didn't happen. Like,
sure.
There was they claim a homeless man was getting close to the convention site, had knives on him. He was shot and killed.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know all the story behind that. And then another individual who was armed with a gun was arrested getting close to the convention site. So it's not to say things weren't happening, but it really wasn't on the level that we saw in Cleveland.
Did you have a lot of officers like before in Cleveland? There were just officers everywhere. It's like martial law. So that was still the case.
Yes, definitely that was there. And that was going to happen regardless, because
of course
you just had the attempted assassination.
Right. I thought it would probably be heightened if possible, but it was so heightened in 2016. I'm thinking, how could they have more officers than they did before? So
yeah, no, there was always a large amount of law enforcement, different branches, different levels that were everywhere. And but we were able to get through security quite easily. We didn't have big lines like it seemed like we did in Cleveland as much. But again, our delegation, we had such great transportation that a lot of times a lot of us could get in earlier before big lines would show up, and that made it seem more smooth, seamless getting in and out.
That is nice.
Yeah, it was. And getting to our buses, they were good about getting us home. Anyway, it was good. They did a very good job, and letting us see a little bit of the culture of Milwaukee,
Right.
taking us to some nice restaurants that are very indicative of that area. Mater's was a German pub that one of the longest, oldest pubs, in the city. They took us to the Harley Davidson Museum, but then we found out after the fact that Harley Davidson is totally woke.
Seriously?
Yeah, and it would have been nice not to get
Davidson?
them. Oh yeah, they are. Well, yeah. See, again, they lose connection with their client base.
Yeah, they sure have.
And no, they're totally way woke. Yeah, very, very woke.
Oh.
DEI, the whole bit. Yeah. And but that wasn't revealed until the convention was over, that they've gone that way. And again, it's just corporations, the CEOs that get involved, that start taking over, and their staff, and they're very woke, and they're not listening. And I think once their client base, catches wind that they might start losing their sales on Harley Davidson bikes.
Yeah. Yep. Once people find out. So, do you think that President Trump, did you notice a difference in his demeanor and his way? Did you feel like he's kind of changed? A little more serious, and like he has had an epiphany from having his life literally just within a millimeter of being taken from him.
Yes, for sure. And of course, who wouldn't be changed?
Of course, yeah.
He was told by the doctors that worked on him how miraculous, how just, a quarter of an inch. I mean, that's not very much space to play with, and he would be dead. So
yeah.
he was, and what's nice is that he seems more open. And in fact, I've heard other videos now of him speaking. He's actually talking God more than almost any candidate.
Yes.
Because like our candidates from Utah, you don't hear them talking about God very often, in their speeches, and he seems very, he's there. He says, I shouldn't be here. It's only by God's grace that I'm here, because I should not be here.
Especially, this morning on the news, say FBI showed there were 4 bullets that went past Trump. It wasn't just the one who got him, but there were 3 others that zipped really, really close to him. And to think that it wasn't just one shot that got him, but didn't quite, that didn't kill him, but it nailed him. The others were so close to hitting him as well. They were just millimeters away from hitting him that hit the other people. So it is quite miraculous. It's not just one bullet that almost got him.
Yes.
3.
No, it's because he was the target.
Yeah, he was the target, clearly.
He definitely was the
Anyone
target.
that thinks he wasn't the target, you just look at the evidence.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's just been interesting, the individuals that who have experience, who have been snipers working in the military, who understand the velocity and the distance and even the wind. And so we just know that honestly, when I saw the one photo that, because for some reason the media knew that they needed to film everything in very slow, I don't know the slow capacity. I don't know the correct term for that for the footage, but they could catch that streak of that bullet that missed.
Right.
And
Yes.
when I saw that, you know what what I originally went to was the bulletproof George Washington.
Yes.
You know,
Absolutely. That was
I
my
thought,
exact. I'm like, wow, that
yeah.
where you can actually see it in.
And the only difference is people's belief in God in our current times, because the Indians, when
Yes.
they realized they couldn't shoot and hit George Washington, that they were firing like dead on, but they
Yes.
couldn't hit him. They realized the great white spirit was protecting him, and they backed down. They stood down once they
Yes.
realized he was being protected.
The great sachem just told
The
his
great white spirit,
chiefs,
the great
chief-
spirit. Why maybe not say white, but the great
the
spirit.
great, well, the great sachem told his chiefs and his warriors under him, don't waste your arrows. Don't shoot at him anymore. He's being protected. Don't bother. We can get the rest of them. You can kill
Right.
the other officers. You can
And
kill the soldiers, but you can't kill George Washington. So don't bother.
exactly. And because why? Because they were respecting the great spirit.
They did. They
They
respected
didn't
the
want to
spirit.
kill someone that was being protected by the great
Spirit.
spirit. They
Or
understood and respected that.
didn't want to wound or injure. Like that's
Right.
he's obviously being
But
protected. So we
he
will
is obviously being protected, and we don't want to be the ones, because they understood there's a consequence. If we're taking out somebody that God's
exactly.
protecting, there's going to be a consequence tied to that. And they
Exactly.
understood that. But we live in a day and age where we're not connected to God. We're not connected to deity. We're not connected to higher being. And so it's all about what we do here on the earth. It's all about men and what we're doing. And so you don't have that. I mean, you probably have half of America right now thinking that he just fell down, that he just got a piece of glass in his ear. Like, you know what I mean? All those early stories that came out.
Unbelievable with all of the blood, and there's so
Yeah.
much evidence. Like there's evidence. So now you really can't legitimately question it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm okay about people questioning. I think questioning is good. I think wondering and questioning, you don't want to just believe it because the media is putting it out there. I think questioning is good. But now there's enough evidence that you really can't deny it any
Well,
longer.
there was a meme. There was a meme on social media that it was like a CNN news bulletin, breaking news for the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And the headline said, Abraham Lincoln falls asleep at the theater.
Oh my gosh. Seriously?
Yeah, because that's how CNN was reporting this. Oh, Trump fell down.
Yeah.
He wasn't shot. No, he wasn't shot. He fell down.
Yeah.
That's the equivalent
Right.
of
That's the
the
equivalent.
news
Yeah.
content that CNN was reporting. It was ridiculous.
And
Yes.
with CNN, because they really, because I tried to watch different channels,
Oh,
but
yeah, they
CNN
did.
was acting like he just fell down. Like he didn't
Oh,
even get shot.
I'm trying to remember what KSL, because KSL did the same thing. Their first initial story, they changed it, but their first initial story was something to the effect that he fell. And because they're just
Uh-huh.
regurgitating national
Right.
media. They're not trying to be
Right.
newsworthy themselves. But that would have been the news story on Lincoln.
Yeah.
Oh, he fell asleep.
He fell asleep.
Oh, no, he actually got shot. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what they were making fun of CNN, of course,
Obviously. Yeah.
but yeah. But yeah, the energy, there's just as much, the media is just as engaged as it was. I mean, everybody shows up. They all have their own area to
Huh?
broadcast live from.
Right.
Okay, because everyone's there. You've got elected officials. You've got uh, political pundits there. Everyone's there, so it's easy. And you've got a lot of delegates who have their opinions on different cycles of the story. You know what I mean? Of what had happened. And so, yeah, so all the media is there, of course. I did notice that a lot of more moderate Republicans don't come. Like, Kasich, he boycotted the 2016. He didn't show up, and he was the
Right.
governor. It was
Right.
so ridiculous to not come and at least be there. But he boycotted. But we had Cox that he didn't want to come. Uh, uh, we had Mitt Romney, of course, wasn't there.
Liz Cheney wasn't there.
Right. Yeah. Well, and she's not in. Well, I guess she still is in office. She hasn't been. Yeah, she would be. Her election is up this year, right? She's up for re-election right now. But
You know
anyway,
what? That's a good question. But I mean, there were noticeable major Republicans who were, maybe 8 of them, that would normally be there, that are part of the party, who were clearly missing.
Yeah.
They were making a statement, and you know what? That's a great way to make a statement. I'm thrilled they weren't there. It's a great way to make your statement. I'm not really part of the party.
Yeah.
Put it out there. Come out of the closet. Make it clear who you are and who you stand for.
Yeah. So a lot more of the never Trumpers, like Amy Winder Newton, for example. She went last time, but again, we were Utah delegates that had been pledged to Ted Cruz. But now that it was a solid, although she was a delegate last time in 2020, but it seemed like this time around, they just didn't want to be there if Trump was going to be the nominee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is fine. I think,
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's better they stay home, because why be disingenuous?
Yes, and absolutely. What would they do there? And it wouldn't be really enjoyable for them. So, Kris, we're out of time, but I just wanted to ask you really quickly, how do you feel about the change in the platform? Because the National Republican platform, it was 60 pages. I read it, and I felt like it was the most amazing platform. I loved it. They've really revamped it. What's your thought on the platform?
Okay. 60 pages is way too long.
Agreed. Even though it was spectacular.
It was great, but who read it?
Not very many. It took a long time for me to read it.
Right. And here's the deal. Where they messed up is their language. And
yes.
And if they would have allowed the process to play out for the committees, they could have wordsmithed their message better. But we have to realize we've been indoctrinated by Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
Okay. And we've somehow felt like we need to fight abortion at the federal level, nationally. Right. That was never the case. And there was an interview that was circulating with Eric Trump, and he had a very poor analogy, I have to say. And the RNC really needs to clean that up. But all they need to do is just educate the people and let them know abortion and marriage is a states' rights issue. We never want the federal government weighing in on abortion or on marriage. It's contrary to the Constitution.
Totally true. So, the Republican platform should certainly reflect our views on those issues.
You've got to realize the Republican platform at that level is a national platform. All they did was line up with the Constitution. They're not a state platform. They're a national. So we want those issues at the state level. And the key thing is, this reporter that was talking to Eric Trump, she said, it's been more than 40 years since the Republican Party addressed abortion like this, okay? Because why? 40 years ago, what was happening? Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade had been around for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
10 plus years. You had Roe v. Wade. And so what the RNC did, which they hadn't ever done before because it wasn't a national issue, they decided to include abortion in their plank because it was a national issue.
Okay. Well, I think it is a national issue.
It wasn't before then. It wasn't before 40 years ago.
I actually think life is very much in the Constitution, and I think life is
It
a
is.
national issue.
It is. It's a
And
stateside
I do
issue.
think that it is one of the things that separates or makes a distinction between the Republican Party and the Democrat Party is that we believe in protecting life from the beginning to the very end. So I am very
And that's
disappointed.
why it's given, the Constitution gives that to, it's not in Article 1, Section 8, Delane. It's just not there.
No, it
But
isn't
it
there.
is in the 10th Amendment.
It is
And
in the
so
10th
it
Amendment, but it is
gives it
also in the
to,
Declaration of Independence,
exactly.
which is
So
not.
all they had to do was just revert back to the language that they have
But
always
but
had
yeah.
60 years
Well,
ago.
I will have you on again because I would love to discuss this issue because this is very interesting and I would love to talk to you about it. So we will continue this conversation because that is an interesting take.
Sounds great. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Kris. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for sharing with us the actual inside perspective of the Republican National Convention. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Delane. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a great day. Thanks.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Okay, now we have our next guest on who I'm so thrilled to have join us. And I am going to introduce her as Jen. And because I really didn't get permission from her to use her last name. And I'm assuming we're not going to get to see you. Is that right?
Yeah, my phone blocks it. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, no problem. Just like if we wanted to work out a glitch, let's get it worked out. So Jen, thank you so much for
Yes.
joining us. Okay, so just a few days ago, it is really interesting because Utah has been lobbying to get the Olympics back. And then just a few days ago, what happened? Utah was awarded the Olympic bid with one condition. Tell us what that condition is, Jen.
Well, one that we know of.
One that we know of. Okay, so there might be more. Okay, so we only know about one. And tell us what that one is. Can you hear me, Jen? It looks like we're still connected. Jen? Okay, hopefully we'll get Jen back. So one that we know about is the... Oh, okay. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
So I'm going to read it. Let me just pull it up because I don't want to misquote it. So I want to pull it up real quick for
That's great. Love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have to push for an end to the federal investigation into a group of Chinese swimmers who were possibly violating policy and protocol. So we have to stop looking into that in order to host the Olympics, which I find weird.
So we get to host them, but as long as we won't look into any investigation, stop an investigation of bad actors or cheating, basically. Well,
right.
To put it in layman's terms, cheating. Now, and I don't even know if you lived in Utah when we had the Olympics in 2002. I don't know. You probably.
I did. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You're a little kid. But I was around and I was an adult, and I remember what happened is we had this bid committee and they worked very hard for many years to bring the Olympics to Utah. And they did a lot of work, like I say, they worked really hard for a number of years. Like them or hate them, agree or disagree, the point that I'm making is that they worked very hard and they spent a lot of time and really literally gave their lives, this committee, to bring the Olympics to Utah. And then people found out through the media that we paid like $250 for favors. That we had this dinner and invited the Olympic bid committee to Utah. And then we had this very elaborate, beautiful dinner. And they gave these favors that were $250 a piece. So that would be like worth $750 a piece in today's money with inflation. So people were just outraged and they're just like, oh, it was so immoral. And it was so, just completely outrageous and completely inappropriate to spend that kind of money. And they felt like the Utah committee was out of integrity and they just shamed them, and they actually fired them and then brought in new ones, one of them being, as you can probably imagine, a governor from Massachusetts to run our Olympics here in Utah, because we couldn't find one person in the entire state of Utah that had the know-how and the integrity to run our Olympics. So we had to bring a governor from Massachusetts in to do that for us, to run the Olympics. So because we were so concerned about the optics and how it would look, because we wanted to be above board and have nothing but integrity. But interesting, in 2024, we're considering, it looks, I mean, I guess it hasn't really been decided, right? Like, we could choose not to make that agreement, or have we already agreed?
He signed on the dotted line on the 24th, so yesterday.
Who's he?
Cox. They signed on the dotted line. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm waiting to hear all of what they agreed to, but that is one of the things they were told they had to agree to. So we'll see what else. Yeah,
so we have, as a state, just to be clear, as a state of Utah, our governor has signed that we are willing to cancel the investigation, call on the United States to cancel the investigation, and ask the National Olympic, oh dear, I just lost Jen, the National Olympic Committee to scrap the investigation on Chinese swimmers, so they will not be investigated who we just were doing an investigation because we always want to have due process and see if they're guilty or not. But there is evidence that they were cheating and that they were doping, and others lost at the hand of possibly cheaters. So we've agreed to that as a state. Okay.
Yep.
So as long as we know where we stand. So that should tell you something about the leaders of the state, specifically the person who signed it. Keep that in mind.
Right.
Come up.
Well, right. And then the other thing I would highlight for the audience here is that no one else wanted the Olympics. So in the Western world, everybody backed out.
Let me be really clear about that. You're not talking about citizens from Utah. You're saying other
countries. Cities like Boston backed out. You know, there's a bunch of them. Budapest, I think, was another. They've all backed out. And I think it would probably be a wise question, and it should have been asked. And if you want my humble opinion, I don't think it was asked. But why did everybody else back out and yet Salt Lake City stayed in?
China and Pakistan were the only nations, and Utah.
Yeah.
So they were the only nations or cities that were still in. Everyone else withdrew on those requirements, said based on their requirements, because they had applied, but they withdrew their applications when they found out what those requirements were, said, no, we're not going to let China cheat, and we're just doing an investigation here, so we don't.
Well, and I don't know for sure if that's why they backed out, but they did back out. So I think probably right, based on requirements, which also go into the Green New Deal, right? The Paris Accord.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Yes. So we lost Jen, but we're having a little bit of trouble with connection here.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So I think that is it seems like a self-evident question to ask. A really great question is, why in the world would all these other countries and cities back out? Of course, China. Do we want to have them in China? Been there,
right? I mean,
Pakistan. Yep. There's probably a reason they stayed in, and Salt Lake City, and their governor signed that. Okay, what other issues are you concerned about, Jen?
I'm also concerned about the climate, agreement.
Huge
portion of it. Now, I have talked to some different legislatures who are aware of it, and they have said that they made sure that Utah didn't sign those portions of it. in a full scale. And the reason I say in a full scale is because, remember, these are the Salt Lake City games, right? And
Right.
Salt Lake City has already signed on to a bunch of this UN agenda and green climate agenda well before they got the Olympic, hosting award, right? Or awarded to us. So, yeah, and the problem is if you're paying attention to kind of how they're wording this and presenting it, is they're saying it'll be a statewide event, right? Because they're going to have things in different locations, so it won't just be Salt Lake, even though it's named the Salt Lake City Games. So where my concern comes in is, yeah, you might have said, hey, we won't do these types of things, if it affects Utah policy. But I have concerns because Salt Lake is already doing it. So what happens if you need to host, I don't know, something up in Park City? They're doing some of it anyway too, but or Bountiful or wherever, right? West Valley, all those kinds of things. What happens to those cities where they might not have agreed to all of that? How are they going to separate that?
Exactly. They didn't agree, and how will they be impacted and affected? Okay, so the Utah, what I've researched, which has been very limited, you've done much more research than I have, but the Olympic budget that Utah has already set aside, what I've understand is $2.8 billion, and they're proposing the total cost to be $4 billion, which does anybody? Yeah, I mean, $4 billion. And they're saying the state of Utah is saying it's going to be 100% privately funded. So, but
Yeah.
What concerns us about that, Jen, is, and I just lost Jen again. Okay, so what is concerning about that is that they're projecting $4 billion, and they're saying right now we have 2.8 from private funds. They're planning on getting $4 billion of private funds. Okay, that's awesome. What is the problem? What is the problem in the contract?
Well, so my biggest complaint with the money portion of this is, for example, and I don't know, so I'm just asking questions, but the stadium that no one wanted, the taxpayers are going to be helping pay for. Is that stadium actually being prepped early to be used for the Olympics? Because this happened, if you remember, back in the 90s. Things were getting built that were actually going to be used for the Olympics, but the public was not necessarily given that information.
Right.
So I just think we need to really actually analyze that and understand that, because then that's not a truthful statement, right? If we're saying that the taxpayers won't be paying for any of it. The other thing is, if you go over budget, then the taxpayers do pay for it.
And it's right in the contract. It's right in the contract that the state guarantees it if they go over budget. Are you kidding me? We're not.
Right.
Is there anyone who thinks we won't go over budget? Is there anyone out there in any country, not just Utah, not just the United States? Is there anybody who believes we're not going to go over budget? Is it possible?
Well, exactly. And even last time, 2002, I would highly advise the public to go really dig into those numbers in 2002, because we're told that Utah, it was very successful. We didn't lose money, etc. Taxpayers, this, that, and the other. But I would highly suggest that people go in and break down those numbers, because the numbers that were given publicly weren't necessarily all of the numbers of what, like all of the money that Utah ended up spending. Yeah.
There are journalists, or reporters, I should say, because I don't know if they're journalists. There are reporters and there are articles that suggest that we went 24% over budget in 2002. Utah went 24% over budget, and they will admit that that is really very small amount of over budget compared to most countries. So even though we only went, assuming we went 24% over budget, that was minor compared to some, because some countries went far more than that. They even 100%,
right,
or 400, four times.
Well, yeah,
Rio,
look at Tokyo. Look at Rio, Tokyo. I mean, here's the thing.
What was budgeted?
Right.
4 times the amount.
Well, that's exactly. And how do you afford that really when you think about it as a country, let alone a city, right?
As
So
an entire country. And who pays for that?
yeah,
The
the taxpayers.
the citizens and the taxpayers end up paying for that.
Yes.
So,
And I would actually also ask Utahns to also look into a few other things with 2002 because it'll give you an idea of some ways things might go in 2034. But there was an ulterior motive for 2002. Maybe that's being too harsh, but there was a side project that the Olympics were used to bring into Utah, and that was a surveillance state program.
yes.
And so I think, you really have to, because if you look at what's happening to Paris, they're also getting a new surveillance state system rolled out.
Mhm.
So I
Right.
think that, we really have to take that into consideration. And I think that cannot actually be allowed in Utah. I think Utah needs to really stand up and say, you're not going to do what you did last time where you put Salt Lake County in a dome, right? A surveillance dome, essentially, and you pulled everyone's emails without notifying them, their texts, their phone call, everything.
Well, and they easily justify it, and especially after the recent assassination attempt of President Trump, they'll have
Right.
no problem not only justifying it, but people going along with it because they'll say, well, we don't want to have another assassination attempt, or we don't want to have any of the Olympic stars or the attendees to be assassinated or killed. And so we need to monitor all these things so we can make sure if there's any crazies out there. So they will be able to justify it. And unfortunately, there'll be many people who are willing to surrender their liberty for safety and security.
100%. 100%.
And so do we know that that's going to happen, or are we just concerned that it's going to happen at this point?
We're concerned. I will say this, and again, it's not meant to offend anyone. It's more like we need to be really aware.
Yes.
I feel like Utah's a little secretive, not a little, a lot secretive with things, and things come out way after it's happened. So I really think that people need to be asking all of these questions and really pushing for those answers and say, you know what, we don't consent to have our 4th, 5th, other amendments violated in order to bring the Olympics here, right? So what all is happening? I think Utah also needs to ask, it's like as a state, we need to start asking, what are the benefits of hosting the Olympics, really? Do we like what happened after? Yeah, like what happened after 2002?
What are the benefits? Yeah. There are some.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to weigh them, the benefits with the costs.
100%. And now the nice thing for Utah is we hosted them in 2002, so we can actually look back and say, do we like where the state went afterwards? You know what I mean? What things were good, like you said, that came from the Olympics? What things were not good, right? And we should really work hard to counter what was bad, right, from the Olympics, and not have that happen again. And so, yeah, I think Utahns just need to start asking themselves if we want to continue this sort of attraction that started in the 90s, this push to bring populations to Utah. Do we have enough water? Do we have enough housing? Do we have enough, our roads can't expand much, right, anymore. So what are our infrastructure plans looking like for all of this?
Because we did have to expand the entire freeway, both in the I-15 and the 80, the 215. We expanded all those for the 2002. And we really expanded them. And like you say, I don't know how we can expand them more. And this is 10 years off. And we're bringing people here. Utah's growing like crazy. So those are really great questions. Like, how can our infrastructure possibly and we're talking 2 to 3 weeks. And how does our infrastructure handle that? And how much do we want to invest in infrastructure and that kind of stuff for 2 or 3 weeks? And yes, you know what? Here's what's true. Like our company, we made a ton of money on the Olympics. We did.
Sure.
We were so busy, and we got to charge very high prices because we were very busy, very high demand. We had to work a lot of overtime, a lot of hours. And, if you wanted us, you'd have to pay because there were a lot of companies, a lot of people that wanted our services. We're in a construction company. So, we made a lot of money. And so that was really fun for us. And it was fun to work on all of these, really, really beautiful, expensive homes and all the things that we did. They were fun jobs. It was great work. And we did make great money. And a lot of businesses like ours made really good money. So there is that benefit. A lot of industries, the restaurant industries made bank. They made so much money. They made enough money in 2 weeks that they would make in 6 to 8 months. So the restaurant industry, obviously the hotel industry did fantastic, but it is short-lived. They make a lot of money. That's not something that can sustain your business long-term. It is something that you make a lot of money and you pay taxes on it, but then the people leave and then you're left with what? And the infrastructure, I think, is a really important. The massive infrastructure we have to consider.
Well, we do. And then I'm just going to put this out there. Hopefully I'm wrong. But I kind of see the patterns from 2002 and what's happening now in Utah. And you got to remember, they passed SB 125 last year, I think it was, that electrifies our entire transit system. So one thing I noticed that Utah did with 2002, stuff that the public might not have been okay with or on board with or didn't want, they went ahead and forced through under this Olympic, we have to get ready for the Olympics. And I'm concerned Utah's going to be forced into sort of that digital setup, right? In order to be ready. And it'll be, we have to have the right security. We have to have more transportation. We have to have autonomous vehicles because we don't have enough people to drive, these kinds of things, to sort of usher in that kind of transhumanist movement, right? Which is the machine human kind of AI experience that they're pushing for in Utah.
Yes, and for those who feel like that's tinfoil hat and that's really out there, it's already happening without the Olympics. We already have a huge movement. If you're looking and you read the bills and read what they actually do and kind of see the movement and what's happening, and not just in Utah, across not just the United States, but worldwide. This is a huge movement. And even a lot of athletes, a lot of movie stars, a lot of famous people are really pushing back. They're very concerned about AI because they can see that their likeness and image can be used by AI to do things that they do not agree with or appreciate, or that others can make money off of their likeness. And so they're very concerned. So even a lot of very famous people with that their image is their way of making money, that are very, very concerned about this. So I think that those are very, very valid and real concerns. And the only way to prevent that is to think about it beforehand. You can't wait till it's already happened and then back out.
Right.
We have to be on guard, and we have to think, okay, what could happen here? I am really, really concerned about, like, we spent a lot of money before on the infrastructure, and we don't even know if the numbers that have been presented to us, the amount of money that was spent, it counts towards the infrastructure, because we have to build a lot of buildings. Now, then those buildings, they're still here, and we have, you have to calculate. If you own a home, I own a home. If you own a home or a commercial building, you know that you don't just like buy it and you're done. It takes you have to constantly be making improvements and upkeep, or it will be deteriorated. And that's how these Olympic buildings, we know the infrastructure of them, they aren't very frequently used because you only have the Olympics, how often? Maybe once, maybe twice. But so we have to find another use for them. And then there's this, does the use, the secondary use, can it compensate for and pay for the expense of the purchase
of maintaining
of it? And so is there an ROI? Is there a return on investment on these things, or are they just going to bleed us as citizens?
Well, also, and I would also say, again, this is where I feel like the people keep getting taken out of the equation. Because do you want, and I just think we need to have honest conversations. Some of those infrastructure pieces may end up being attached to your property tax down the line, right? If it gets converted after the Olympics to a rec center or something like that, well, now it's part of your property tax. Did you agree to that? Did you want that? And a lot of places, as we saw this year and last year, I mean, the property tax increases are insane right now in Utah. They're
horrible. And they're unconstitutional, in my personal opinion, because we have a right to life, to liberty, and property ownership. And so when you can't own your property, you can lose it to the government, to the county, because you can't pay the taxes on it. And for a lot of people, like my house is paid for. So obviously my property tax is more than my payment. But I mean, for a lot of people, it is more than their payment. It is more, their property taxes in a few years is more than they actually paid for their home. For a lot of elderly people, they didn't even pay that much to purchase their home. And so now they're paying in 5 years, literally rebuying their home. And so it is, it really makes it very difficult for people to ever own a home of any kind. And especially when you look at our young people, because of interest rates and property values, the price of property, plus the price of property tax, which does impact your ability to get a loan and to be able to purchase a home, is very, very expensive. And so those are really important things. And like Jen brought up a really good point. This is really important to note. When we go over budget, if we do, and I'm just saying when we do, how will those taxes be put onto the citizens? And if it's done through property taxes, then how do you ever get out of it? Like if you income tax, at least you have income to tax. Sales tax, you can decide. Sales tax, you get to decide if you want to pay that based on, I was just saying, sales tax, you get to decide. If you don't want to pay the sales tax, you don't purchase the product or the service. But with property tax, if you have a home, you end up paying it. And even if you don't have a home, you end up paying for it, because as a property owner, and I have rental properties, yes, my rents had to go up this year. I felt so bad. I sent a letter to my tenant saying, I'm sorry, I would not raise your taxes, other than I have no choice because property taxes and interest rates have gone up and I can't survive. I can't continue without it. So renters do pay property tax indirectly. They definitely pay it. So that is a great question that we need to be asking and need to be upfront. We want to know, when we go over budget, how will this, when it's transferred to the citizens, how will they be paying it? And how can we keep it from going onto our property tax? Because personally, I find property tax the most egregious because I find it unconstitutional. All right, back to your question, Jen, is what could the Olympics do for the citizen? And I was explaining how there are a lot of businesses, there are certain businesses that do benefit from it. But how does it affect
benefit from
the actual citizen?
Right. So, I mean, I don't know about you, but of the feedback from 2002, people, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Sorry.
Much better.
Okay. Sorry, my phone's having issues. The thing is, people loved volunteering for it, which is fabulous, right?
Yes,
loved volunteering for it.
But
yes, but there was, if you remember, there was a lot of congestion that a lot of people complained about. There were actually other businesses that were affected poorly with the setup of downtown, right? When they closed off downtown.
Yep.
Right, winners and losers.
If you weren't in the hotel or restaurant business, you were very much hurt by it.
Right. So I think, we kind of, and I think everybody needs to kind of think back, okay, that was 2002. This will be 2034. We're moving at a very quick pace around the world, not just here, into a digital sort of system. So what does that look like for 2034? right? Who benefits, again, from the Olympics, whether it be business or people? And what are maybe some of the harms that come to that? Are they greater than they were in 2002, less than they were in 2002? I just think there needed to be, frankly, I think that the people needed to be engaged in the conversation, and they were not at all. We were completely left out of the conversation, and it
Well,
was
and people are often left out, but the reality is, are the representatives even asking these questions? Are our
exactly.
elected representatives even thinking this through and asking the questions and seeing how it affects the citizens, the people they represent? So
Right.
I'm concerned as to what level. And being up at the legislature with we having the hockey field and the baseball
Mhm.
stadium and baseball diamond, that field.
Mhm.
I felt very much that not only were the citizens not being engaged or included in it, but I felt like the representatives were not really being given very much information. They were kind of told, go along with
Mhm.
this. They were
Mhm.
not being listened to. They weren't asking questions or having those questions answered when they were asking the questions. Plus the
Yep.
fact that, I mean, there was no verification. Like when they would finally get the question asked, who's going to pay for this? They said, oh, it's not going to cost the citizens anything, which I'm sorry.
Well,
Prove
it
it.
always costs us. It always costs us. But the other question I have is, and this is a very
Okay, we lost Jen.
private.
Okay.
Oh,
We missed.
sorry.
You'll have to back up, Jen. Start at the beginning of
Okay,
that sentence.
sorry. I was going to say, I think, yes, valid, but also with these private investors that they talk about, or, these private people putting money in, etc. Who are these people? I want to know who is supposedly paying for this, right? Who's the private investors?
What do you think? It's George Soros or what, Jen? What are you worried about?
Well, Bill Gates, George. I mean, take your pick. You know what I mean? And it could be somebody. It could be freaking John Stockton. Who the heck knows? You know what I mean? Could be good,
Right.
bad, or otherwise. But we don't know. And you're now paying for this. And I'm sorry, you and I both know if there's money involved, there's strings attached. Doesn't
There
matter
has
if it's
to be.
good or bad. There's strings attached. So these questions need to be asked, and they need to be answered. And the people have a right to know, since it will be affecting our lives directly. So, yeah. And is it actually making Utah better? Like, even if the Olympics had very little cons, let's say there was very little, problem to it, etc. How is it helping Utah? I just want that more clearly stated by the people who are so excited about bringing this here for a second time. And remember, Dalane, they also want us on a permanent rotation for the Olympics.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would just like to know what that's going to look like. And again, the cost to Utah for that.
The cost to Utah citizens, because,
Yes.
let's be honest,
Yes.
Jen, how many citizens of Utah actually participate in any event at the Olympics? Even the volunteer percentage is very small. But even the volunteers,
Right.
they get to go because they're volunteering. They get to, as they take the tickets or different things that they do, they can kind of see part of it. But how many Utah citizens actually get to go and watch and really participate? It's mostly people from around the world who come because the tickets are so expensive. They're very, very expensive. But who deals with the traffic? And a lot of Utahns actually rented their houses out and got out of town. They said, I'm leaving. I'm going to rent my house. And that worked out for some people, made a lot of money. Other people had their house trashed. And because these are international guests, they had no way to really be compensated other than filing a claim on their insurance. And so that's a risk. But I was very tempted to do that myself, because I just thought, wow, because some people were, especially our house at the time, we could have rented it out for $30,000 for 2 weeks. I'm like, yeah, that's
I believe it.
Yeah, that's not bad money. We really
Yeah,
consider.
no chump change.
The thing is, we have to find another place for our family to live. So
Right.
we have to go somewhere.
Well, no, I mean, it's true. And actually, I don't know if you've been paying attention to the commentary on social media and across the board, but the most of what I'm seeing is not positive. You know,
Really?
people are not happy about this. They're like, oh, well, I hope I move out of Utah by then. I hope I can, you know what I mean?
I
Like you
have
said, rent my
seen the
house
poll,
out.
but I
Yeah,
didn't
I
really
mean,
know.
there's,
Like they're saying that I think they're saying 80% of Utahns are excited about it. Is that what you
yeah, they're
heard?
saying that, but I'd like to know those polling numbers. Did you poll 800 people, or what were
Well,
the
or did
polling
they
numbers for
poll,
that?
or did they poll, just like people that are on the committees, or
Right. That's, yeah,
volunteers? Yeah, you
yeah,
kind of want to know who's getting polled and who's doing the poll. I always want to know who is doing the poll and what's the
right.
question.
Right. Well, like I would love them to poll West Valley and see how excited West Valley is for this to possibly be right in their, you know what I mean, backyard. I just be curious about that.
Right.
And
Yeah, it is interesting. And I think, a lot of times we can get really excited about something and get kind of sucked into the energy. But I
oh,
think that
sure.
the important thing is the question you asked, what good does it do for the citizens of the state of Utah?
Right.
There will be certain segments of the economy. There will be certain specific businesses that will do well. Other businesses will really struggle and suffer from it. But really, and those are really important things to consider. But how does it affect the citizens? And will there be a wealth transfer? What is the wealth transfer? And
Right.
that's my biggest concern about the Olympics is, you have something for 2 weeks. Some businesses might really be damaged, but most businesses can overcome if they're only damaged for 2 weeks. Most businesses can overcome that, but I am
Sure.
very concerned about the wealth transfer and
Well,
and
so am
how
I,
it
especially,
impacts the citizens.
well, especially after 2020, right? We've already, like, if you think about it, we've already taken a hit, lost a lot of, you know what I mean, businesses, etc.
Yes, yeah.
So
After
what? Then
after
they've got,
COVID,
right, and now they've got to build back up, and in 10 years,
mhm,
they might get hit again, might not. I mean, again, who knows? It's 10 years down the road, but I think I think there's some really critical questions that Utahns need to be, and our legislature, right, genuinely asking, and then say, there must be an answer for this, right? We're not gonna do circle around the mulberry bush here. We want an answer. And to quote Mike Leavitt, former Governor Mike Leavitt, when he was talking about the Olympics, he feels that it's a large gear that moves all the little gears. It's one of those types of projects, and he said that it can transform society and has cascading consequences. So, what do those look like for Utah this time around? Right?
has cascading consequences.
Cascading consequences.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
and those might be benefits. He might have chosen the wrong word as consequence. Who knows? You know what I mean? That can
Right.
mean a variety. But I just want to know, what does that look like for Utah? And I'd like them to also critically think about it and think about the effects for Utah, both positive and negative.
Right.
And look at what happened after 2002. And we now have an NSA data center, in Utah, more
Yes.
than one. But I mean, the big, you know what I mean? We have a
Yes.
lot of added surveillance after that, because the 2002, like I said, a side project of that, because it was right after 9/11, right, was that we had all of the surveillance brought in.
Absolutely. So
And was
these
that a
are
positive or negative? I don't know.
Yeah, so these are great questions that really every one of us need to go to our legislators. We need to be asking these questions of our elected officials and make sure that they are doing their due diligence and that they are truly representing us, and ask, like, these are a lot of sincere, serious concerns. I'm also, and we brought this up, we've touched on it, but I think it's a really important. I just want to remind everyone to ask about how this will impact our freedom of movement. And I don't just mean during the Olympics, I mean thereafter, the long-term impacts of the surveillance. Because once you institute surveillance, it's really easy to keep it and really hard to get rid of it. And how it will impact our security on
Mm-hmm.
just our personal lives and the personal freedoms that we have. and how this
Well,
will,
right.
and that's, I think, a really important question. And then, of course, just, like being able to go into buildings and the tracking. I think the tracking for me, because I'm a freedom lover, the tracking is a big issue. Of course, I like to spend my money my own way that I choose.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be paying for this for the rest of my life. And I definitely don't want my children to, but even the rest of my life, I don't want to be paying for this Olympics.
Right.
If businesses want to bring it, great. I have a really big issue with the state saying we're going to be responsible for this
Yeah.
financially
Same.
if it doesn't come through. I mean, that's what incentive. I just ask you, what incentive is there for those powers that be, those in charge? What incentive is there when they have a safety net that's like, we're going to pay for everything. If you don't get donors, don't worry. Spend all you want. There's no limitation. Spend whatever you need, because the citizens are going to be on the hook for this no matter what, no matter how much you do or do not spend. What we do know
Right.
is Tokyo in 2020 was estimated to cost $7.3 billion. These are not airy-fairy like numbers that we're just pulling out of a hat. Tokyo
Right.
2020, that's not very long ago, 4 years ago. They were estimated to cost $7.3 billion. Anybody want to guess how much it actually cost that they came out with? So it could be actually more than what, but what they can verify, $30 billion. 7.3 billion to $30 billion. So Utah's going to sign, we're going to be on the hook for that. If
we go over.
Who thinks it's not going to go over? On average,
Well, thank you.
Go ahead. No, please.
I was just going to say, I think it's taxation without representation. I'm sorry, pure and simple, because it more than likely will go over. So did the people get any vote or say on this at all? Did anybody put it to a vote? Ask any
representatives even say, because we don't even know how much it's going to be.
Well, that's exactly it.
To just say however much it is, if we go over, we'll just be on it. On average, they go over 156% over budget on average.
Right now factor in inflation, and now factor in 10 years later from now.
Right.
I mean, honestly, what does that even look like?
On average, 156% over budget on average. We only went 24% over budget, according to the media. And that is really pretty minor. 24%, like, oh, that's not bad compared to on average 156% over budget. That is a great concern to me.
Yes, great concern.
And to have an actual legal binding contract that says if we go over, the citizens are on the hook for it. That, I mean, we should know enough about human nature. The incentivization of making sure you don't go over is completely destroyed. Spend all the money you want, it's covered. So, okay. Well, Jen, thank you so much. This is really important, very helpful information. And I just ask every single listener to please contact your representatives, contact your senators and your legislators, your mayors. Contact your mayors, because the mayors have pull. They need to understand this. This will impact them. County commissioners, make sure your county commissioners, they meet with the legislature regularly. Make sure they know, because probably the number one is the county commissioners, because if it does go to property taxes, the only people we have to protect us from that are our county commissioners. The only way we will stop it from going, the overage and the taxes going to property taxes, would be our county commissioners. So I would ask everyone to contact your county commissioners, contact your legislators, and then contact your mayors and city council people. And definitely contact the governor who has signed, and just say, yeah, why are we okay about hiding fraud and crimes? Why aren't we willing to do an investigation? Why is Utah joining in when all these other countries have decided to sign to withdraw their application? For what reasons? Yeah, we should know the answers to all these questions. Jen, do you have any other thoughts that you want to share with us? Thank you so much.
I think that's pretty much it. Just, make sure you're engaged in conversation, and we need those answers. So I would just say make sure that you stay on it until we get some answers on that. So that there's, accountability should things maybe.
Hey, we kind of lost you. We can't understand anything. You're super gargled. But the one thing that thank you so much for joining us, Jen. And Jen made a really good point that I was able to catch, is that she said we need to ask questions. Yes, we do, but we need to get answers. So we can't just go ask questions and end it. We need to say, I need you to follow up with answers. We need answers. Before we go on with this, we can't just ask questions. We need to get some answers to it. So, and I just want to bring up one other really important point. We just have just a minute. We have been told by our governor that Utah is not a sanctuary state, but Utah does have sanctuary status. It's not official, but we have sanctuary status because KUTV from Utah did a story, and they have documented that Denver is paying the travel costs of at least 2,000 illegal immigrants, also known as undocumented immigrants, to send these illegal immigrants or illegal aliens to Utah. And we have already been able to document 2,000 of them. And we do not have in the state of Utah the capacity, to care for them. We don't have the housing and the infrastructure to care. So I'm sorry, that's what happens when you talk for 2 hours. So we already have, we're already growing. We have a lot of people moving to Utah. We are already saying that we have a housing shortage, we have a water shortage, and that to keep bringing people here, we don't have the capacity to even house our own children and to keep them here in the state of Utah. And so this is of great concern. So I think while you're talking to your county commissioners and your legislators, that's another point that you might want to bring up to them, is that we are very concerned about the number of illegal immigrants that are coming here, or I should say illegal aliens, because you're not an immigrant. Immigrants are people that come here legally. And you know what? I love legal immigrants. I just love legal immigrants. And I want to see people come here, to not just our country, but to the state of Utah. When they come through the front door, we know who they are. I'm all over that. That is a great thing. But we do need to be able to take care of our own citizens. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening. I just want to extend again an invitation to everyone to Freedom's Light Festival. It is September 19th, 20th, and 21st. It is a chance to meet face-to-face the founding fathers and founding mothers. They were ordinary, everyday people, but they did amazing things. You can come and you get to listen to their stories of the actual things they did. You get to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, and the ever so beautiful. You get to learn what they were thinking, why they made the decisions they did, how they created the most amazing Constitution ever created in the history of mankind. It has been going for over 240 years, 247 years, and it's genius. It's incredible. You can come and learn through activities and through engaging things that you get to do, experiences. Learn these principles and what makes the Constitution so amazing and how incredible it is, because you might think you love it, but you might not know that much about it. 15 years ago, an Ivy League university did a survey of the current Congress at that time, and they asked them one simple question: have you ever read the Constitution? Just read it, not studied it at length, taken a class or really learned about it. And 80% at that time admitted they had never read the Constitution. I hope we have better numbers today, but let's face it, if we don't know about it, we don't understand it. How can we defend it? How can we stand up for it? How can we actually implement it? And so I would ask, this is an exciting opportunity to come and learn more about the Constitution and find out ways that you can get engaged and learn about classes. There are so many free classes being taught on the Constitution, and we'll have all those available to you to sign up or to learn about them and go get engaged. So many of them are online. There are so many opportunities, and it's also a great opportunity to get to know other like-minded people. So I again invite you. That is September 19th, 20th, and 21st, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Thursday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Friday, and 9 a.m. to 3 on Saturday. So Saturday, if you come on Saturday, be sure and come at least by noon, because we're going to close down at 3 and you want to have plenty of time to see everything. It takes 4 hours to see and experience all the things that are available. So leave yourself time. Be sure and you're welcome to come 2 or 3 days, come all the days. There's different things happening, but you're all invited. And the website is freedomslight.us. Freedoms with an S, freedoms light like a torch, .us like United States. So you can go on there and you can see all of the schedules and different events that are happening at different times. And we would love to have you join us. And there is a family festival on Friday from 4 to 8 that will be really fun. Some additional things that will be happening that will be really fun for families. So there's something for everyone from 9 months old to 99 years old and even older. Cannon's printing press, Isaiah Thomas's original printing press. Well, it's not the original, it's a recreation. It's an exact replica of Isaiah Thomas's printing press. But I hope I got your attention on that. And many of the amazing founding fathers and founding mothers, Joan of Arc, the Mayflower, get to immigrate through Ellis Island, food booths, get to make a candle at the chandlery. We have a gift store, so you can kind of get prepared for Christmas. Come get some really patriotic things that you can remind people how great America is. Lots of great books, so you can learn more and extend from there. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a beautiful day. And remember that you are the guardians of your liberty. Thank you so much. God bless you.